Something's on now. Good afternoon, everybody. We're convening our work session to discuss a potential, I guess, public-private opportunity. I think when we're done, what we would like to at least have is some acknowledgement of whether there's something worthy here to continue negotiating on, maybe instruct staff to go out and do, or, you know, if there aren't 3 votes in theory or 3 heads to say, we'd love to see this an agenda item, I guess by virtue of that, unless there's something that we specifically hear, see, or know of that would be that we're probably not interested. But with that, I know, and Paul, you'll introduce yourself. You have a special presentation you'd like to make to us, and then I guess we will discuss that.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be in front of you. My name is Paul Ellis, and I am president of CNL Commercial Real Estate. And as the mayor said, the intent today is to have a discussion on a public-private partnership for a new parking facility at the Civic Center in conjunction with a proposed development on the current Mount Vernon Inn site, which we currently have under contract. And we'll dive into this. I thought perhaps and was encouraged to maybe share a bit of history from my perspective on this site. And I mentioned at the groundbreaking for Heritage Park that the reason I was born in Winter Park was because of the Mount Vernon Inn. And not why you're thinking, but in the late 50s, my Aunt Helen, who is 93, my great Aunt Helen, who is 93 years old and currently a very active resident of the Winter Park Towers right now, and quite frankly, one of the few female real estate developers in our state, even to this day. She and her husband purchased the Mount Vernon Inn in the late 50s, and she handled the expansion and renovation of that project. And in the early 60s, they sold the project to the Frazee family, who have owned the project since then. Now, I say that as we've started to work on this project together, and I've engaged in the community, one concern that I've heard is, the one overwhelming concern I've heard, quite frankly, is the closing of the Red Fox Inn. Let me deal with that, because perhaps nobody in this city is more connected to that lounge than I am. After my Aunt Helen sold it, my grandfather stayed on to work as the bartender. My grandfather is Paul Ellis, who I'm named after. He remained as the bartender in there until he passed away, quite frankly. And in the early 60s, my father would work with my grandfather at the lounge during his summers. And one summer, he met an attractive young lady who was playing the piano and singing in the bar as the entertainment, someone I like to call Mom. And so one day during that time, they met, and as such, I'm standing before you right now. So before there was Mark and Lorna, there was my mom and my dad. And I grew up, quite frankly, on that site. When I was 6 years old, 5 years old, I would hang out with my grandfather, feeding squirrels out by the pool on that project. Now, what does that have to do with you, with us today as standing before you as a real estate developer? I get the significance of this site. It's significant to my family, it's significant to the Frazee family, and it's significant to this city. And the reason I'm standing before you is because I made a commitment to the Frazees when we started this discussion that we would honor the opportunity and honor this site and create something that could have a pretty dynamic impact on the city. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So, here in the history lesson. This is the proposed project, very briefly from a site plan perspective, and we'll talk about this a bit in more detail, but essentially what we're proposing is to develop the parking garage over the existing parking lot, that's all we're talking about. It's just to build that structure within the current bounds of what you see there today. Now let me talk a little bit about CNL Commercial Real Estate and our track record here as it relates to these types of projects. And I would say for us, we have a track record in the city right now. We've got a very straightforward approach on these types of projects, and we really do try to focus on a win-win approach. Part of our culture, it's win-win when you look at our values and our core values, win-win is on there. And we believe that Heritage Park is a great example of how cities and business can work together to create great projects. We believe it's exactly what today we had hoped it would be, and I hope it's exactly what you had hoped it would be, both from a design standpoint and from an ultimate project standpoint. We've got a deep understanding of city needs and how to create solutions to meet those needs. In Heritage Park, we diversified the corporate environment. We brought in Brassfield and Gorey, which is a corporate headquarter, and we've recently announced we signed Regis headquarters, which will essentially serve as an incubator space for future businesses, and hopefully as those businesses grow, they'll have the opportunity to stay in Winter Park. We also believe it's the next step in enhancing Winter Park. And when we talk about our project, and we're not going to talk about it in great detail today, but when we talk about Harper Exchange, it's market oriented to what we're hearing on the ground today. Today, we hear kind of four things. The pedestrian experience within that area is not very attractive. We hear over and over that kids and grandkids in Winter Park and employees can't find housing within Winter Park. It's an increasing trend that we're seeing in most cities. Gen Y and young professionals want to move back to the cities that they grew up in and want to live closer to their parents. And today, that's a difficult proposition for somebody who's just graduating from college, and we propose to solve that. Today, the business community has limited options for regional meetings. When you talk to Brassfield and Gorey, if they have a partner meeting or a Southeast meeting, they're going to have that meeting in Orlando. They're going to have that meeting in downtown Orlando where there's hotel rooms and there's meeting space. And today, they don't have that opportunity in Winter Park. The one aspect that I can talk about our project, the one aspect that I can talk about now is that we are working with Marriott to do the feasibility study on the hotel piece of our project. And then the fourth thing we hear is that the commercial experience on 1792 is suboptimal. I think we would all agree that there's great potential on 1792, and there is, we believe that this project could have a deep impact there. We're here to talk about a public-private partnership, and that is a very thoughtful trend that we're seeing here today in enhancing great cities across the country. And what essentially it is, it's bringing public and private interests together to create an entrepreneurial approach to meet the city needs. And we have a successful track record in that. Today, probably one of the largest public-private partnerships in the entire Central Florida area is the CNL Plaza. It's a 650,000 square foot, 2 towers, 2 office tower project, in addition to a city hall, as well as we co-own the garage, which is a 2,200 stall garage. It's the largest garage in the CBD, and it is probably one of the most successful projects in the area. We've worked on projects in Boynton Beach, which was a CRA initiative to revitalize downtown, and we've worked on the Slade in Tampa as 2 examples. We have more. In addition, we have a track record right now of working on some of the finest mixed-use projects across the Southeast. Through our retail team in Charlotte, CNL Crosland Commercial Real Estate, as well as our best practices for the groups that we lead in ULI, you'll see that we're working on some of the nicest and newest lifestyle mixed-use projects. What that means for this is we are very engaged right now in best practices. We're seeing what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what kind of the newest standards are in these types of relationships. So let's talk about some of the preliminary concepts that we're going to show you here and to kind of really spark the discussion. This is a simple site plan view, and this is kind of a basic structure. And what we're talking about here right now is a 4-story, 5-deck, 600-stall garage. In this plan view, we're not going to do sightline studies, but when you do a sightline study coming from Morris, from the corner of Morris and Denny and heading towards 1792, you literally wouldn't be able to see this garage until you're right on top of it because of the tree canopy and the way it would sit into this project. And we also think there's some additional ways to enhance that. This is kind of what it looks like in plan view, and you can see it's a pretty attractive structure. It's an open structure, as we've talked about. This is an idea, and we'll start exploring and talking about some options for discussion. This is an idea that is really It's green wall technology, and I'll show you an example right here on the next slide. But really, what it is to say is this garage creates a palette in that area to do some pretty unique things. Certainly, you can do green technology and you can do green wall technology, but you can also do panels. We're going to talk about the ways that this could potentially enhance the Civic Center area. You could do white panels. You could do LED lighting on these panels. You can do a situation where you can show movies on these panels. There's a lot of opportunity to not just build a structure, but to have a structure that's engaged in that whole project. This is what kind of green wall technology looks like today. And you can see there are a lot of examples across the strait. These are kind of a thinner wall, but there are examples that you can increase the depth of that whole green siding. And again, this is just one example. I think part of this discussion will be when we sit down. You know, if we're allowed to sit down with the staff, we can explore a lot more of those options. So let me also propose that we believe that there's an opportunity to enhance the usability and appeal of the Civic Center as a destination for Winter Park and surrounding uses. And that's this proposal. And so this is a scenario where we would actually engage the Civic Center and create an outdoor area. And this is just one simple view of this. And I'll give you some actual examples of where we've seen this in other parts of the world, quite frankly. And you can see this is what that screen wall and that screen roofing looks like. And really what it does is it creates a very attractive area that encourages outdoor use. Now you can completely enclose that, you can glass that, or you can keep it as an open area. And you can see the kind of looks and feel it gives. It would dramatically improve that area. It would dramatically activate the Civic Center and the opportunity to enhance its uses. And we'll talk about here in kind of our final slide. So, very quickly, but let's we can use this as the framework to start the discussion. But these are the key points that we see. This is a public-private partnership to develop a joint-use parking garage over the Civic Center parking lot that will enhance the urban, economic, and pedestrian environment along 1792 and Martin Luther King Jr. Park. So how does this project benefit the city? It's solid urban planning. The garage will enhance the surrounding existing and proposed uses that will support the use of the park and the Civic Center property. It ensures the maximum use of the park by utilizing the existing surface parking area and will provide parking for all park and Civic Center activities. So what I want to stress is this is not just building a bigger parking area. This is building over an existing parking area. It enhances the overall appeal of the Martin Luther King Jr. Park and dramatically improves the pedestrian experience. Park your car once, enjoy the park, enjoy tournaments, exercise, and dining. We believe it also enhances the opportunities for the park and the Civic Center. Think about movie nights in that area. Think about outdoor entertainment. Think about all of the different things you can do with a destination. And as you look at real estate development today, when we talk about these types of projects, what you'll hear over and over again is that successful projects create a destination. Because with the advent of internet shopping and what have you, if you're going to be successful, you have to create a place that people want to come and stay. And the way to enhance the urban environment is that when they stay, they park their car and they leave it. They don't. They want to be able to walk around. They don't want to be able to drive from place to place. We also believe the garage will act as a springboard for redevelopment of the 1792 corridor and activate attractive development, diversifying away from single-use projects that we see today along 1792. Banks, convenience, quick-serve restaurants, and upscale dining. It will move towards upscale dining, urban residential, and hotel. We think there's a creative solution and something that we'd like to explore when we sit down with staff of using the parking garage, either upsizing it or creating the addition to add more floors to incentivize development, the type of development that the commission wants along 1792 by offering parking. Because at the end of the day, the type of project we're trying to create is when you drive down 1792, what you don't see is a very large parking field. You see urban space, you see green space, you see community space. And we think there's an opportunity to use this garage to incentivize that type of development. And then finally, economic impact. The parking garage will provide an expanded economic base and create jobs. It's an $80 million, our total project is projected to be somewhere around $80 million. This represents full development of the Mount Vernon site versus partial development. It's a significant increase in the property tax base. There will be construction jobs created in this project. There will be new restaurant and hotel jobs created in this project. And one of the things that's very important to us as the community, we believe that there's going to be expanded job opportunities for local residents. We want to work to really make this a community-wide impact. We want to establish local residents' job fairs, and we want to establish minimum local and minority hiring targets for construction. And there are programs that we're working on with other cities that will enhance long-term training for these types of jobs. So, with that, what we are requesting is the ability to move forward with staff that negotiate a public-private partnership on the parking facility and begin our process of citywide notice for public input on the Civic Center parking facilities and the redevelopment of the Mount Vernon site. So, all in 15 minutes.
Well done, Paul. Why don't I first ask if there's any specific questions of the presentation that might be a good place to start? I don't know, the commission.
Paul,
Sure.
the parking says 600 parking places. What level of density are you talking about in Mount Vernon?
We're talking about today a multifamily apartment project, a hotel, and 2 restaurant sites.
So is that P1?
It
What
would
bar
be,
level is
it would be, we don't have the FAR run right now, but it would be a PD1 with some tweaks. Right now, your PD1 only allows for 3 acres. And so this, our site is 3.5 acres. So there would be some things that we would need to run through with that, but that's generally where we're going with it. And obviously getting a nod here tonight to move forward, we'd be able to complete those sites.
So are you assuming that you would get the full 175% bar allowance, or are you assuming, because you know that 175% bar was put together to assume the incorporation of the parking garage? So if the parking garage moves, are you still looking at 175%?
I can short circuit, but we've not run any FAR on this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going to increase the density on this side.
A lot, I didn't expect it to be
Yeah.
45%. The
Yeah.
question is 100%, or are you looking for 175% plus a parking garage on site?
We have our architect here. I think we.
We don't have exact numbers on that.
I want to know if the buildings would be pink or blue or green. I mean, I don't, it sounds like we're just going to.
Yeah, I think the intent, the hope to come out of this is to have the discussion on the garage with city staff, and with that, that will initiate, ultimately, what the garage is will have an impact on what our project is. I mean, we're offloading the product to kind of create an urban environment, and so that will dictate a lot of your questions.
And for the record, since I'm speaking, I'm Rebecca Wilson, the Mouse Trust Cluster Cantor, and the 215 North York Drive, on behalf of CNL Commercial Waste.
Commissioner?
Paul, I've got a parking lot. What else are you looking for from the city as far as the garage goes? Or is there a financial commitment from us you're looking for, or are you just looking for?
I think we're looking to have a discussion with staff and talk about what the city needs are. I think certainly if part of this is to dramatically improve the public parking in that area, that's free public parking, we would look for the city to be engaged from a cost standpoint in the garage. If we're looking to build a garage that just enhances the urban environment and only is related to our project and there is no other, then no, we wouldn't be seeking anything from the city. But I think the idea here is to enhance both aspects.
And the 600 car number, is that what your project requires, or is that?
That's more than our project will
So
require.
there's
flexibility to move it up.
There is public
and-
parking.
Absolutely.
Within that 600.
I believe there's 78 spots there now.
I was going to say it was less than
Yeah.
100.
So, yeah, Commissioner Mackin, the scale you saw today is one proposal. I think part of this will be a needs-based discussion as well with city staff and what have you, and see what, what would benefit the city. And certainly we understand about what our project would need, but it would be less than the 600 stalls.
Paul, kind of off of what Tom was saying, I don't know if the city needs anything. So the request to leverage our parking to increase your density, I'm not sure how the city participating financially is a benefit to the city. And I understand the bigger play here. I think if anything, it's almost, I look at it the other way. If you want to use our land, we're already financially contributing to it by providing the land. I would look for the developer to contribute more to the city, whether it's through a land lease or something, to give back to the city for that property. Because we're offsetting your parking needs. So I kind of want to take a different approach to it. Again, I kind of see the developers coming forward to say, we want to use your property here, but we're willing to pay you to build the garage. I don't see it the other way. That's just where I'm starting. But I still want to, I'm fully supportive of continuing conversations. I want to see where this goes. But if it requires the city's financial contribution, where I stand today, I can't see that. I can't imagine that.
I think it's a fair perspective, and I think part of this dialogue will, as we go to the next step, we'll begin to add that detail, that level of detail. I don't know that we're sitting here today saying this is what we need. We're saying, look, we see an opportunity. I think I would perhaps move your position a little bit the other way and say there's a much larger impact here than just, we get a parking garage and we get to densify that site. I do think that there's an opportunity to impact that area. I think it's an opportunity to really activate that park even more. So I think there's other benefits, but I think in the detail, I appreciate that, and I think that in the detail that will come out.
Okay, thank you.
We as a commission have had 1792 and Denning on our radar as areas we want to sit and discuss in some form like this. They are two great avenues. They're great today. I think that they can even become more Winter Park-like and far more lively than they even are today. I mean, if you look at the amenities directly around this park, in addition to the Red Fox, and by the way, I don't know, Paul, how that word is out there, lounge, but it has gone multiple counties, I might add. I have received. You must retain at least 1,000 square feet for.
If we get through this quickly, then I'll be happy to bartend.
And I'm a teetotaler, but obviously we need to have a retro lounge in our city. That would be great. We have some great amenities. Morse is a phenomenal, one could argue, was designed as the entry point to our city, not Park Avenue and 7-Eleven, one could argue. This is a situation where I certainly want to go forward and see what the creative minds both of staff and I will say this, CNL is one of the most creative groups that look for win-win-win-win-wins. I mean, if you look at the project in downtown Orlando, I don't think there's any doubt that that wasn't a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. I haven't looked into the covers and looked at what the finances and all that are, but as somebody who occasionally finds himself in City Hall in downtown Orlando or in some of the buildings that are there, that's better than what was there before, clearly. So I, for one, am very, very interested in trying to figure out what this might look like. This is new territory for me. This could be very exciting, or we could quickly go down a trail that says, it's just, at the end of the day, if you got to pay X number of million, and what does that do for us or whatever, that probably might be I would say a potential deal killer for me. But I love the idea of taking both 1792, and I think that the approach of what you're looking at piece by piece, 1792 didn't get to be where it was overnight, it's not going to change overnight. We already have some change occurring in terms of office to more retail across the way. We wouldn't have to worry about more sailboats on Lake Killarney on this side of 1792. We looking at how those things could start to become working together, I might say. And what I mean by that, I don't mean.
Right. Just synergy.
I don't mean synergy. I mean it's it's amazing. One doctor wants to be near another doctor. They don't all want to be other places. So whatever reason, doctors like to be near doctors. Probably lawyers probably like to all have it near the courthouse, etc. You know, this begins to say something really special about what could happen in our city. And if we're thinking about that in terms of vision, I think that that could be where both the creativity of our staff, other residents as they have input in CNL, I think the best of this could come up with something that's a win-win. So I certainly would support going forward in terms of discussion. Again, that's without a budget, that's without lots of different things. I mean, I would argue that maybe the site should shift a little bit in terms of where the direction, I mean, just different kind of things if we were going to do that today, all things being equal. To me, I've, just in what you presented, I've seen enough to say this is intriguing, this is something we should study, and we should have a fair public hearing on it. And if it fails, it fails. It won't be the first thing that somebody tried and didn't work, but it may be something that could launch something really, really great in that overall corridor. Between Denning and between 1792, we've got some real opportunities and some great civic institutions, including, you know, now Heritage Park, which will be truly a civic entity for us in terms of bringing corporate headquarters in. We've got Valencia there, we've got great ball fields, which we've had dialogue about. You know, those things all go together in something special.
Well, and we would agree with you. I mean, and I think when we first approached on Heritage Park some time ago, that was a very significant input from all of you that we viewed that as a gateway entrance to the city, and I think the project that we're talking about here would only go to further enhance it.
Do we have any, Jeff, maybe you're the one to answer this question, it's a little bit tangential. Any historic issues with the Mount Vernon? Mount Vernon's been here a heck of a long time.
No, it's not on the register, so it's redeveloped.
Other than George Washington slept there. George Washington slept
Hey,
there.
listen, you never know. Okay, just check.
And the question for
We'll
you
get a phone call.
is could something, you said you don't know your magnitude yet, and you don't know where you are with your number of parking places, and I apologize, as you know, this is my first opportunity to talk to you about it. To me, the question is, as we went through our zoning, we currently allow 45% floor area ratio in our office development. When the discussions went on about how do we create a better environment, how do we allow more green space, how do we move forward with new development, the decision was made to look at increased bars, and that's not something that anyone at this table did, but bars were brought to us by people who are supposed to be pretty expert in that field. And at that point in time, the understanding was that if you go from 45% bar to 175% bar, that bar was large enough to allow you to build your parking garage on your site. And so for me, I can see the need for and the appropriateness of rezoning that property. To me, there's two questions here. The first question is that site appropriate for PD1 zoning? And I would say to you that it meets every single criteria that was established in the comp plan for consideration for PD1 zoning. Then the second part is, must we go far, far beyond the floor area ratios that were brought to us as appropriate for our community in order to facilitate development? And then the next question is, if we're going to do a public-private parking garage, are you meeting a need of the city? And if I go look at our capital improvements plan, I don't see a parking garage at the Rachel Morris Center. If I go look at our parking study, I don't see anything that says we have a need for more parking there. So from my perspective, we're not necessarily partnering to meet a need of the city. We are partnering to meet a need of the developer, which happens to enhance the overall area with newness, but it also does some things that aren't an enhancement. It adds, we've already put 100 and something units of affordable housing, and we put 200 units of marketplace housing, and we put 300 jobs in the CNL building. So we've already added that to one block further on Morse. And what are we doing to this community when we start adding that many more cars to that area? And is that the greatest, most wonderful thing in the world? I don't know that everybody would agree with that. So, and then the question becomes, is towering over Rachel Merle with a parking garage necessarily an improvement to what we have? So for me, it's a question that says, yes, probably PD1 is a great idea. I wish you could come and develop at PD1 standards and put your parking garage on your own land. Because I don't, you know, and I'm not, understand, I haven't been able to have a conversation with you, so I'm not there yet. But I just need to express this.
We will address those concerns. I just want to throw out there, we build, if we solve our own parking needs on our own property, we believe that what you do lose is a larger benefit, which is what are the opportunities for the civic center? Maybe it's not always going to be used as a civic center. Maybe it will have a use one day that requires more parking. And we've now helped the city create that as opposed to just solving our own problem. Another is there are other parcels of property, and that's why we wanted to talk to staff about, do we size this to just replace what's existing, the 78 spaces, and address our own needs, or do we size it a little bit more and maybe encourage the Midas on the north side of Morse to redevelop into something other than a bank? Do we also try to, you know, increase the ability of, no offense to the people that own Copytronics, but Copytronics to be able to now use some type of more common garage. When Park Avenue was originally developed, I'm sure people said we don't need any parking, but as it became successful, we now sit here with parking problems. So part of building really good mixed use is using public-private partnerships to build the infrastructure before the need is around, and then allow the city to create its vision up and down 1792, which doesn't include season parking.
And see, that's why I was asking you, what is your project? What is your project? Is your project 175? And I know you're telling me you don't know, but I'm sure there's a pretty good understanding that you couldn't have run your ROI, you can figure out what you want to talk to us.
Actually, I know you don't seem to believe us, but we've run our market study based on a need. We didn't start with the code, I'll be honest. We started with
I don't care about that. I'm just trying to understand
what
what
the
you
need.
really do need
What
to
is
do
the
what
need?
you are trying to do.
What is the need? And we've talked to many retailers, we've gone to ICSC. We have found that there is a desire for high-end restaurants to be located in a synergistic way across from Hillstone, across from the wonderful things that are going to happen at Lakeside. So we have 2 upscale restaurants. We also continue to believe that there is a real need for a business hotel in the city of Winter Park. I'm a big proponent of the Alpine Inn, but we still think that there's a need out on 1792. So Paul mentioned Marriott is someone that we can come forward with that that we are speaking to, and that's another wonderful way when I think someone stated the word synergy, and it's having the Bon Air, the Brassville Glory, having their corporate headquarters for them to have large meetings, put the folks up at the Marriott. We're having them not do a convention hotel. We'd like to talk to John Holland about using the Civic Center convention space that is not rented out. I believe we asked it's used for major events 15 times a year. Wouldn't it be great if it's being used once a week for those types of events? So that's the kind of synergy, and we're also looking at multifamily. So that's the kind of synergy we want to build, and that's the kind of real mixed use. So now we have office across the street with the Kewen project, Mr. Barnes's Bank First building, and Heritage Park. We have a park now, we have Valencia on the other side, we have beautiful restaurants, and we've increased the amount of multifamily availability in this area. So that's our vision. And that vision doesn't happen if we just build our own parking and keep our parking to ourselves and don't share.
And I would say too, I mean, you're talking about an urban environment that fronts, is literally on the corner of two 8-lane roads.
A national highway.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a federal.
So this is an urban environment, and again, I mean, as I look at it, as we've talked about it, wouldn't it be great if you drive by these environments and you don't see a sea of parking? You know, you see a true urban environment, and I think that's the type of development we're trying to execute on and inspire. But I think two things too. You know, Becky said it well. I mean, this is, how does this become a win-win for all of us, as opposed to us just saying, hey, we're just going to do this on our site, and hopefully you'll approve that. I would say this as well as it relates to the parking need. And I think you said it best earlier in the commission meetings. We don't know what it's going to be like 5 to 6 to 7 years from now. I feel pretty confident that if you're going to activate development in that corridor, you're going to need more parking 5 to 6 to 7 years from now. I'm pretty confident. If you want the type of environment, otherwise you're going to have cars spread out all over the place. You're going to have parking fields spread all over the place. Wouldn't it be great to now plan ahead for that and create a zone, create a pedestrian-friendly zone where people will bring their car? Because look, the fact of the matter is Central Florida is a drivable culture to community, but the way to inspire pedestrian activity is to create these kinds of centers where people will park their car and they will leave them there for the entire day. Now you also have to have the activities that they have to have, that they have to be involved in, but we're talking about an urban environment that fronts, 8 lanes of highway and is on the corner of another 8-lane road. So,
And one more thing, Paul in particular really challenged HKS, the architect, to not just, I mean, for lack of a better word, plop down a parking garage on top of the existing, around the asphalt block. But really, how do we engage the park? How do we engage the Murrah Center? And it was really interesting when they were going through looking for great examples of this. Most of those examples you find in Europe, where you have the beautiful barrel tile roofs of, a 2 or 3 story building. Next to, I think it may be one, next to a more, a bit more modern structure where people are outside enjoying things. And so we want to be very respectful of that existing building and of the existing park that's there, and that's why we looked at different ways to address it.
You guys already know that I don't support this project. I don't support it because it's hard for me to think that we are creating a destination when what we're doing, what you're asking us to do from the city is to provide the property for the parking garage. Because you're the ones that told us that the best way you can create a mixed-use area is to create a destination. And I don't want to become the kind of person that thinks I can't think out of the box. So I'm thinking, what is this destination going to be? What are we going to have? What skin in the game does the city have that's going to create, that this is going to make a destination for people to come to? What's going to happen there that people are going to come there and it's going to become something important? Because I just don't like parking garages, and I'm sorry, but I don't. And so with that, it's hard for me to take the property that we have now that I like, that appeals to me. I don't want to stand in the way of progress, but I don't like the feeling I get when you come to the city and say, we're going to help you, and yet I don't remember asking. And then I also am wondering, when we talk about 1792 and the vision, we as a group here haven't talked about 1792 and the vision. And so it's bothersome to me as a commissioner to have other people come in and say, we're going to help you with your vision. Well, guys, here at the table, if we want this to happen, we have got to get on the stick and sit down and talk amongst ourselves about where we want to go. Because the problem when this comes to me is that it's coming to me, but why didn't we say this is what we want and go out and look for these things? Because that's why it's bothersome for me. And I know, Paul, I appreciate everything you said. I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's great. But it's bothersome to me as a city that we're having people come to us and say, we're going to help you with your vision, commissioners, but the commissioners haven't done anything about a vision. And so that says to me, we need to keep thinking. And I know we need your help. I got all that. But I'm not feeling like we're in control, and it's bothering me.
I think there's two thoughts that come to mind. Great cities engage the overall community. They engage the business community, they engage the real estate community, they engage the community, they engage the education community to find creative solutions. And that's simply all we're suggesting. I certainly wouldn't say that we came to you saying nobody's done a great job on 1792. We're saying, look, we've got a creative solution here, we'd like to propose it. And I think we're simply saying, too, let us have the dialogue. Let us get started with the discussion and see what comes out of that. You certainly won't have to improve whatever comes out of that discussion. And I think that's what we're saying.
See, I wish you would come to us offering something that is within the plan. I know people like to say that the city doesn't plan at all, but way before I got involved in the comprehensive plan discussions, people were planning. I mean, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars planning. And the truth of the matter is, people did want to rebuild 1792. They did want to do that. And that's the reason they tripled the allowable floor area ratio, was to make that happen. And why didn't we quadruple it? Because in the end, our vision is that our community still has a level of density that we can navigate our streets and we can sit in those restaurants. So when you say to me, you know, you got to build it bigger, 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 and that's our vision, it's not my vision. My vision is someplace between the 45% FAR and the 250% FAR on the land.
Well, I don't know that we've ever in this presentation come forward and said we've got to build a bigger, 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 bigger. I don't think we've ever said that.
That's what I was asking.
No, I understand, and I think what we're saying is we want to go through the process, and we want to deliver a project that we think is very market appropriate. I mean, there's the density, and quite frankly, I think you succinctly said here are all the issues, and I would agree with you. I think there's other things that are going on though that I think when you look at a project of this nature, you're going to have a lot of different opinions, right? And there's some of the concerns that you have, there's the concerns that you have. But I think you have to look at the opportunity here once we fully flushed it out and presented it. Is it truly an opportunity that meets the needs of the community, both of the Civic Center, both of what's going on in this market? I mean, I would tell you, as I've talked with folks in the community, particularly those that have kids, I have heard this over and over again, that my child is graduating and they want to live they want to live in Winter Park and they can't find a place to live. We've heard that over and over again. And when you look at the demographic wave that's coming in Gen Y and the young professionals today, they overall generally want to live closer to their parents. And this is, in great cities, will create opportunities for all of that to happen. When you talk to the folks at Brassfield and Gorey right now, they're young professionals. They're not, you know, the folks that have bought homes, they've had at least 4 or 5 people buy homes in Winter Park. The folks that aren't buying homes, that have to rent, are not renting in Winter Park. And those are lost opportunities. Those are lost opportunities because what happens is when people put roots in a community in their first opportunity, they tend to stay for their second and their third, and they buy homes and they grow families here. And I think that's what we're saying. So I think if you take one item in this project and just say, well, I'm gonna get, you know, I don't want to do this, I think you're missing the overall opportunity. And I think what we're saying is let's get that in play and have that discussion.
Paul, I think it's an extremely interesting proposal, and it's one that I believe is if we decide to move forward and discuss with staff, probably needs more input than many. It's a little different. It's a little different than your previous project, where, you know, I mean, this is city property. This is the city park. There's a lot of hair on this one, for lack of a better term. And I'm willing to do that, but from a process standpoint, I'm just, and again, I'm talking off the top of my head on this one a little bit, but I mean, there's probably a discussion with staff, and there's probably another discussion like this, where it may not be a straight line from staff to the dais, that there's probably more thought process involved in this than there may be in others. And I think there's diverse opinions, as I've heard here this evening. We have a conceptual thought that's been brought forward to us, and I appreciate that. And I believe I'm talking to myself semi and saying let's talk to staff. But where I don't want to go is to say we're going from staff to dais. I don't think that I would be comfortable with that. I think there's community input that would need to be involved. I think there would be some work sessions that would need to be involved, and that we'd have to. It's out of the box, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's going to need to be those kind of discussions, and I don't know what your timeline is, but it may be more than a.
There are.
And I want you to understand.
I appreciate that, and we certainly not propose that we
everything is time and money. And
yeah, we're not proposing that we would usurp the city process at all or short circuit any of those things. But I do think we are suggesting. I do think we're suggesting that. But we are going to follow our intent would be to follow the process because it's market appropriate. And there is cost associated with waiting. I mean, because we'll spend a lot of money, and have spent money to kind of begin our due diligence in this project. And the Frazies have a commitment that they have to make towards the end of the year to either keep the Mount Vernon license going or not, and that costs money.
I think that, and that's why I have this. It's almost a cautionary, because Commissioner Cooper's brought up valid points.
Mm-hmm.
What is where are we on that? And I think those are things that perhaps, hopefully you can flush out early enough that we could sit down again and say, okay, now that we've taken a baby step in this direction, we know a little bit more about what we're doing.
Commissioner, can I interrupt you for a second?
Oh,
can we ask Randy, what is the process? So let's just say by the books, what's the process moving forward? If they get 3 votes to move forward to have discussion with the staff, where does this go after that? So, and if Commissioner McMacken is saying he'd like an interim step in there to give him comfort, then I'm certainly supportive of that as long as it works with time schedule. So can you give us an idea of?
If you don't mind, can I answer, because I was just
Sure.
jotting it down.
Absolutely.
Based on the city process, and there would be time in here if we wanted to add additional meetings. Towards the middle to end of August, we would have to submit a site plan and description to your planning department. They would then send out citywide notice, which goes to every household in the city the first week of September. That's when the notices go. So that means that we could go to a planning and zoning the first week in October. And that we would then, your second meeting in October, come before you. This would be 2 readings in Mount Vernon, needs a comprehensive plan and then a rezoning. And so that's 2 readings. So then we also come back for the first meeting, is the only meeting that you have in November.
For second reading?
For the second reading. So certainly.
So basically, we have about 45 days or a little bit less to what I would describe as potentially brainstorm or that needs to occur over the next 30 days or so. In terms of our, I mean, you can bring back Mount Vernon ideas tonight, with or without our going forward with this process, correct? It just may be enhanced if we're involved. And oh, by the way, I would hope we wouldn't just say that might not be parking garage. I mean, maybe putting a hotel site on that parking lot might be better for all people, and putting the parking garage someplace interior in the building. Those are the kind of creative thoughts I would like to have in terms of a public-private partnership if we were ultimately looking at what may make the most sense to this. But if I was a hotel, I think I'd rather front ML King Park than front 1792 as an example. But just a thought. So this 30 to 45 days. I mean, you've got to present something that gets drawn up. You said by the middle of August. Is that what you said, Becky?
Yes.
One thing I like to add about the process, and maybe she mentioned that as part of what
piece is, I think it would also require a rezoning or a comp plan change for the parking lot site is now zoned park.
But that could happen concurrently.
It could happen concurrent, I
Yeah.
mentioned, I think that would You be see more time. a necessary part of that process.
I think so. I mean, I'm sorry.
There would be time in that whole process to engage a separate meeting or a second meeting,
Well,
have a workshop, feedback.
Sure.
Well, there's public input, but we would be asking staff to, okay, sit down and let's talk this thing through. And I really want to see that talk through before it goes to citywide notice.
Well, that would be specifically for our piece of the transaction. I mean, they could go
Well,
tonight.
they can do whatever they,
and ask
there's
for
a whole
whatever on
separate
their
thing of
piece
just-
of
on
process.
just that.
But that's what's
My
driving
guess is-
this.
My guess is that that process doesn't work if it doesn't have the garage.
Yeah, we said differently, we wouldn't submit for citywide notice what we were planning on submitting if we weren't doing the garage.
Right, so
You don't have to.
Right.
Right.
yeah, no, so that's the
You
whole.
can do that without having all this.
Well,
I think they don't have to, they still
You
have
do have to?
to.
Okay.
No, it would have to still go through that. You can't agree with them.
So,
Tom, where would you like to add a step? Because I'm supportive of it, I just want to make, like,
I mean, there's so many questions on the table involving the garage.
Well, could we identify what
And
those are? I think those
they're-
should
they're,
be.
you know, who's
you know.
who's owning it? Are we leasing it? Are we doing this?
Right.
And what's the agreement with the civic center? Are we bringing it, is there city contribution involved in this? And I think those are sitting down with staff and banging that out. But I really think we as a group ought to see that and say, yes, we're still comfortable with it. I mean, we've just gone through this on multiple layers with Rabotage where we've.
That's the financing, what you're saying. What would the
What-
deal
what-
look
what-
like?
What is the deal?
Yeah.
And why is the deal?
And I don't know that that's all going to be answered tonight. I don't know that you can answer it all tonight. And I'm willing to listen to it one more time, but I think it needs to come back in this kind of forum to your benefit. Because I don't want to get all the way to October 15th and say, you know what, I didn't like that back in, September, and I don't like it any better now. You've spent a lot of money, we've spent a lot of time, and everybody's walking away disappointed. If we're going to be disappointed, I'd rather have it occur in August or the 1st of September.
So would I, and I think you can get disappointed faster, you can get disappointed slow. So I mean,
I'd rather get disappointed
that would
fast.
behoove us pretty quickly to say, would you like to go out with me tonight? And we say, well, no.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that. That might be painful, but it's over, and then you know what you're doing.
It is spending money.
So, I know enough now that I would like to at least think about this over the next 30 days. I think having some staff input in that process is wonderful. I think they can quickly look at run the traps and go, gee whiz, this is so darn complicated for our city that it's just beyond us.
Yeah.
We've got a commission that's, thinking of 2013, and this is being thought of as 2020, and, whatever that would be, or, they're asking $5 million, we don't have it. I think that's an afternoon of staff's time, personally. If they can't get there, then it's too complicated to deal with. Commissioner Sprinkle, to your point, I don't think we as a commission have all of the knowledge or the smarts of what a vision or other things look like. I think even if we had 2 months of Denning or 1792 discussions, not just hearing citizens who have tremendous input, but hearing our business community like Paul and others who say, what could this be, I think is exciting. I mean, I don't look at this project and go, oh my God, this is horrible, and what's happening to our city is going to hell. I look at this going, well, this might be a possibility. Until they put those signs up there, I couldn't have even reacted to anything. Just the whole process of sitting here, to me, has been creative. And my sense is this happened 125 years ago with our founders. I don't know if they just came in isolation and I guess maybe they just laid out their market. That's what we have. I think there was probably some give and take, and there was some development community. Our founders were developers, let's be clear. They helped create the vision of our city. And they made it what it is. And this is an important, I would say, gateway. I think the comp plan even identifies it that way. Morse is a gateway to Winter Park. certainly our CBD. I think, to me, there's no harm, no foul in 30 days of staff. If at the end of the 30 days, all we did was teach staff how creative people have done it at 3 other places in the country, that, to me, will be worth 30 days of our staff's time. Whether CNL does this or not and wants to do that is up to them, obviously. I think there's a lot to learn in looking at something and seeing what might be. And if we're not married to it's got to be this way and that way, and being able to figure out how those things might work together for some win-win-win-win-win. Because the citizens have to win in this. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's cash flow or some amenity that we don't have today that we'll never have today or something. I don't know. And I do have one thought in the back of my head when we were looking at the state office building. We heard from ministers on the west side and others who said, give us a venue where we can have our regional meetings. I don't think the All-Fun is going to meet that. I mean, those are things that I think that we are missing a whole level of regional. We don't play in a whole regional. I'm not talking about regional. I'm talking about a statewide region. We get a city. What is the city benchmarking people once a year, and that's really out of the will of Randy Knight just saying, come on down and make it the civic center. I mean, the community center available. And if we were intentional in this, I think we could really see I think it could advance the whole city in ways that we don't see, both economically and otherwise.
And I think one of the things that we get excited about, and I mentioned, I think there's a lot of connection between what's going on at Heritage Park and exactly that. I mentioned Regis. Regis is going to be spinning up companies. They're going to make a decision on as they become standard bearers, profitable and sustainable, they're going to make a decision on where they go.
Hey, Paul, you mentioned Regis. Can you just, I know some people know what that is.
Regis headquarters is signed a 14,000 square foot lease in Heritage Park. And they are essentially a professional office incubator space where if you're starting a business or you have a regional sales outpost or what have you, you essentially lease space with Regis, and they provide your conference center, your phones, and your AV equipment. And this will be one of the most advanced ones in their system. It's going to be a brand new system. And so essentially what happens, we have Regis and 3 other projects that we're in. They end up spinning up companies that lease space in the community, and many of them will stay in our project. But if our project's full, then they won't have a place to go. And B, they'll make a decision based on the activity they can have, whether it's regional meetings or entertainment or what have you. Will they come to Winter Park, or will they go, you know what, I had 3 regional meetings and they were all in downtown Orlando, I'm just going to go to downtown Orlando. So it's a great opportunity. I mean, it really is. I mean, we're excited about it because we think it'll create more activity along that area. And we want to create an environment where folks are putting down roots in Winter Park in that area and grow. So.
Randy, our next meeting is 3 weeks from tonight. I just would like to make a proposal, see if there's 3 nods, and if not, if there's no nods, we'll go home. That 3 weeks from tonight, we could take another hour out of our City Commission agenda time to have a work session on this very topic. But what would happen between now and those next 3 weeks, I would propose is that city staff have whatever opportunity they want to dialogue on this, to create, if they need a planning half a day or whatever, to see what types of things look like. But I think the rudimentary things that I would want to see in workshop session, at least in August, would be, what do the beginning deal points look like for some exchange for land, or what that looks like? And that's got to be win-win-win. I'm with Steve. I mean, if you're not giving land away, we've got to have a return on that. And I don't think that would take 3 weeks. It may take 3 weeks to know what the thing looks like, and how green it is, and how blue it is, and how old it is or not, et cetera. But I don't think that the deal points, you're going to know pretty quickly if there's something that the city does or doesn't make sense for it. And then maybe the identification of some sort of a citywide process in August that would allow us to have whatever public input that we need. We will have 2 meetings in August. We can put this on the agenda for talking points. Certainly citizens can weigh in just based on this meeting. We don't have to have a formal meeting for citizens to absolutely weigh in on. They weigh in on all the time. They respond to Carolyn's emails. They respond to other emails. There are lots of things that people weigh in on without, quote, a formal meeting. In fact, the vast majority of our citizens would prefer something more informal, I think, than I have to come to City Hall at 7 o'clock on Monday night when I take care of my kids. What do I do to give input to something? So this this might allow some creativity in that, and you know, I would suggest that at that point, we give them nods of three heads, this is something we want to go forward with or not, and that, you know, all that gives us a chance to fish our cup. That's what I would propose.
And when do you see us finding out what it is they're proposing? Because I have not yet.
Proposing
seen
for
we're
what?
proposing.
That site?
What we're proposing, yeah, what it is.
I think they're asking, I don't want to speak for Paul.
The parking lot, I mean.
Well, ask Paul. I don't know that it's mine to determine when we want to see them.
Okay. Right, but that doesn't mean what we're talking about.
I guess what I would say, yeah, and I mean, what we didn't
I
want.
mean, we've heard three things already. We've heard a hotel, we've heard 200 and some odd residential units, and 2 restaurant pads. I mean, I don't know if that's 75,000 square feet or whatever, but I mean, I think that that also is not rocket science. That could be somehow figured out what that is.
I would propose, I would,
But
well, if we knew, Carolyn, we would. I mean, we've said that, I think 4 times now that we don't have the exact specs and what have you. So I would say this. No, I would say this. I would say this. What I think it's entirely appropriate to is to come out of that discussion so that the city can see everything. That says, here's, you know, we call them threshold issues. Here's the threshold issues for the garage, for the city, in terms of financial commitment, ownership structures, all of those types of things. In relation to, here's the size and comprehension of our project, and have a response. I think what we said is, let's respond to the entire package as opposed to what we didn't want to do is send out a citywide notice on the package, which presumed that we were doing something with a garage. We need that approval in order to go through that CUP process. So I think what we're saying is create out of that discussion with the staff, we'll come back and say, here's the threshold discussions and here's our project. Because the project is going to dictate the size of the garage in that.
Something worth it.
And I would like to see you do it on your own property. That's where I'm at. I would love to see anything you could do to improve that property on your own property. So,
Well, if somebody's going to give me $35 million for it, Carolyn, I don't know that that's the case. I mean, you know, I wouldn't close my mind right now. If somebody says, here's $100 million to use part of the Murrah lot, and to say, well, I just want to see it done on other people's properties. We're in the complete brainstorming. We're in the complete brainstorming phase. That's what I've heard. This isn't the.
We've proposed concepts to begin to have a creative discussion.
That's what P3P is.
The thing we have to be careful about, though, is that we don't hear out there, which I have already heard. So the city's now giving away your property.
Well, that's
I
not
understand,
accurate.
but I know it's not accurate, but I also know that, you know, that's what people will say.
Well,
So-
people will say that,
and it
you know,
goes real fast in
I
discussion.
mean, people have said all kinds of things about us that we have to quickly understand is not.
Well, I need something here that says to me, for the city of Winter Park, this is what you're gonna get if we do this. This is what's gonna be valuable to the city of Winter Park.
Absolutely.
So my
I'm talking
proposal-
about destination, so I
My-
need something like that.
My proposal is staff is being paid by the city of Winter Park. They're not being paid by CNL, they're not being paid by Brazil, they're not being paid by anybody else. They're being paid by the city of Winter Park. If Randy can't figure out with his team by August 13th what a proposal that would look like that would benefit the city of Winter Park, that we could at least have some general deal points around that we could take to something public, then we could be open to whatever criticism. I mean, it's you know, people can criticize you, and they will criticize you. People have criticized all of us and will continue to do that from here to eternity about stuff that we're even thinking about doing that, you know, people have criticized me for things I'm thinking about. They haven't thought about that. So I mean, that is not, I mean, that just, I think, goes with public turf. But this is a public process that says, is there some creativity here? And, you know, I would like to at least have 30 days for our staff, or whatever, the next 3 weeks, 21 days, for staff to be able to see if there is. And you know what? If it doesn't meet any of your needs,
I can always vote.
you can always vote no. And you know what? If I don't like it, I'm gonna vote no too. And a win-win-win is a win-win-win. It's not a, wasn't that great, or we just got 5,000 extra square feet in the city. That's not necessarily a win. Are there 3 to that?
Yes, I'm willing to go forward with a workshop, whether it's 12th or the 13th, whatever that is.
It's
We'll
that
see
Monday,
we'll
whatever
see
that
what the
Monday is.
actual, what can be talked through with staff.
So that lets staff have the opportunity to have a shot at this, be very
Yeah.
creative, come back with some
I
things. And
think-
by the way, if.
I think they've heard us, I think it's 12th. 12th is
Yeah, I
the
get
actual
that date
date.
confused.
I think staff has heard us that, you know, it's gotta be, there's gotta be something in it for us. And if there isn't, there isn't. Sarah, I'll be the first one to vote.
Something or something after? Something, just something in it for us?
No, I mean,
Or something
it's,
that-
Well, the
you know,
definition of
something that-
win-win-win,
something-
Commissioner, is
You know,
equitable.
That's right, and that's the problem.
No,
Here's the
it's-
deal, we are truly talking about, if that garage doesn't go on that site, and we now give them 175% floor area ratio. That is a.
They haven't asked for that.
That's what they said, PD one, excuse me, PD one, that's exactly what that is.
No, you said it was ideal for
Mayor,
PD
please
one.
don't interrupt.
Well, please, please.
But this is where people get
Let's
misled.
finish,
We're
but this
talking
is-
about people being misled, and this is where people get misled. They have said they're gonna come back.
You have the floor, and then we're gonna conclude, so
And,
go
and
ahead.
then what we're talking about is working toward a PD one type of zone.
No, that was what you suggested was a possibility. Let's be clear. Was that true? Is that what they're asking for tonight? No, I didn't hear that.
All right,
No, I want to just be clear. Did you hear that?
yes, I did.
We're not asking for any rezoning tonight. I
I'm
was
sure,
asked,
but-
was
but
this
ultimately
similar
it's-
to PD one? My answer was PD one with some tweaks, because
Right.
there's some things in PD one that are unmanageable.
Which today is not even applicable because it's 3.5 acres. So,
They're only, the option is we're going to look at the environment. Now, when you take that, what you're talking about doing is going from 45% FAR to 175% FAR. That has a huge financial value. And the question is, if we truly were going to get any semblance of equity, they would be rebuilding the Rachel Murrah Center to
And
give
that
us
may,
the.
and that
that
may
might be the
final
idea.
solution.
That might be the
I
idea.
haven't heard anything from them yet.
Yeah.
I've heard they want to talk
And
to
you want to build a
staff, and-
performing arts center for us.
And I
don't know.
appreciate that. And I really do. It's not, you know, when my first night on P and Z 20-some years ago, the chair put his arm around me and he said, "What's in it for the city of Winter Park?" And I've always kept that at the forefront of what I do. I haven't heard what's in it for Winter Park yet.
Okay.
I'm giving staff 21 days to come back and say, guys, this is what's in it for Winter Park. And if it is equitable, if I really believe that it advances this city in a positive manner, I'm gonna wanna hear more.
And minimally, we know the Red
If they
Fox
come back
Lounge
and say,
is
you know what,
important for
it
Winter
isn't,
Park.
it isn't there,
That is
then
an
it isn't
important
there.
distinction.
You know, that's-
I'll be there in about 20
I haven't
minutes.
heard it. One way or the other.
But I also
It's
want to
just
say,
like we sat down today and went through this one and said, you know what? We ain't there for what the ask was. And I don't want to spend 6 months getting to that point with this one. I want to spend 21 days.
21 days,
And we're going to know whether we're there or not, and let's call it there.
Whether we got something to do
or
or-
bad or different. We spent way too much time on that one
We have.
because we didn't have these heart-to-hearts, to your point. We never
With that,
sat down and
I'm gonna
said,
thank everybody
where
for
are
their
we
time.
really at?
we're going to adjourn. Have a wonderful evening.
I'm willing to.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Because he's been before.
Oh, yeah.